One of the many pitfalls to avoid in this season, especially in the end times, and when the revival of God is so near and taking place. We thought we've probably seen revival, but there's so much that God is about to do in the coming days. And one of the many pitfalls is arrogance. There's this arrogance that, especially in the prophetic and the apostolic, offices, that we must be able to fight against. And this arrogance is that, oh, I am the only one doing the right thing, or we are the only, sect doing the right thing. Everyone else is doing, they are not doing, the right thing. And we see this example in the book of the First Kings, chapter 18. In Elijah, in First Kings chapter 17, he declared that there will be drought, and then he went to the brook chariot, and then eventually to Zarephath, and afterwards God asked him to return back to Israel in First Kings chapter 18. And when he returned, he had an encounter with one of Ahab's servants, Obadiah. But Obadiah feared God, and Obadiah came to Elijah and told him, he says, see, I've hid 100 prophets of God who had not bowed down to Baal in caves, 50 in one cave, 50 in another cave, and I've been feeding them during this particular famine. So Elijah was aware of the fact that there were other prophets in the land who had not compromised. But when he went on Mount Carmel to challenge the prophets of Baal, he declared unto Israel, he said, I am the only prophet, I am the only one, and there are 450 prophets of Baal. I am the only one. We have to be careful of that word. I am the only one standing. Just because you are the only one standing on Mount Carmel doesn't mean that they are not other prophets, they are not other servants of God who had not bowed down to Baal or kissed Baal. And it is paramount for us to know this. And it didn't just stop there. By the time Jezebel began to threaten Elijah, he went away and he had encounter with God, and twice God asked him, Elijah, what are you looking for? What are you doing here? And Elijah said the same thing. He said, see, my life, it's just, I'm frustrated. I am the only one, the only prophet, the only one standing who has not bowed down to Baal. And then God asked him to come meet him again, and then God asked him the second time, and Elijah said exactly the same thing. I am the only one. And maybe because he saw himself as the only one, he felt the weight of the whole world upon his own shoulders, and he became so frustrated, not realizing that there are others. But he had been told that there are others. Just because those others have not emerged yet doesn't mean there are not others who are true to serving God. And so that what happened was, God then spoke to Elijah. He told him, he said, say, your ministry is coming to an end, go and anoint 3 people. And after God told him their names, he says, see, but I have reserved 7,000 in Israel who had not bowed their knees to Baal or kissed Baal. And that God had to correct Elijah there. God saying, Elijah, don't think you are the only one standing. Don't think you are the only one preaching the truth. Don't think you are the only one who has not compromised when it comes to Baal. There are 7,000 that I've reserved by myself, that I've preserved from being contaminated by Baal. And these people have refused to bend the knee to circumstances, to bend the knee to idol worship, to bend the knee to Jezebel. There are 7,000 in Israel that have reserved. And so don't think you are the only one doing the right thing. Don't think you are the only one prophesying in my name. Don't think you are the only one prophesying in my name or teaching the word or trying to champion the revival. There are others who have refused to bow their knees to Baal. And we could see eventually Elijah had to go anoint Elisha. Elisha was just a farmer, but he eventually became a prophet of God. And so what I'm trying to say is, don't think you are the only one. Don't think your ministry is the only one. Don't think your maybe denomination is the only one, or your ministry is the only one that is preaching the true gospel. That is a mistake we must avoid, because that is one of the arrogances that takes place, and that can kill revival. And we begin to see sectarianism, whereby there are prejudices between different maybe denominations, different churches, and everyone believers saying, oh, we are the ones right, everyone else is wrong. Oh, thank God for our ministry, everyone is doing ministry wrong. we're the only ones doing things right. That is not what God has called us to do. That is one of the arrogances. We must fight that arrogance so that it does not grow in our lives. Whatever God has called you to do, I'm here to tell you that there are others that are doing the right thing as well. Just because they have not emerged yet. It could be in terms of maybe your calling. You've been called to preach the gospel. You've been called to be a minister of the gospel. Just because no one else is probably on the same class as you, just because other prophets are not on Mount Carmel, doesn't mean they've bowed down to Baal. We have to understand and realize that God by himself, he has reserved several people who have refused to compromise and bowed in it. And just because they are unknown at the moment doesn't mean they don't exist. And so we must get rid of that mentality. I'm the only one, or we're the only ones doing things right, we're the only ones innovating. I think that was the problem with BlackBerry company years ago. BlackBerry was probably one of the biggest phone company back in the days. I remember 2010 2011, a lot of my friends, they used BlackBerry. But then one of the mistakes BlackBerry made was they thought they were the only ones, and eventually Apple came with iPhone, and that disrupted BlackBerry. BlackBerry is nowhere to be found today. And so that when we think we are the only ones, at times we begin to misbehave. At times we begin to think, oh, as long as it's just us, we can do whatever pleases us. Then we fall into a place of complacency whereby we're unable to do even so much more, and God can replace anybody at any particular time. And so this is applicable to ministry, to our lives, even in terms of career, in terms of business, in terms of your career. Don't think you're the only one doing the right thing at work. Don't think even though it seemed like you're the only one, right, doing the right thing, even though it might seem, don't add that mindset that I'm the only one. There are others as well that God has preserved. There are others that have not yet gained visibility, that they are being trained in the cave of Adullam to become mighty men, to become giants in the land. David, he trained the men that came to him. These men were despised, these men were weak men, and then they eventually become mighty men. They began to kill giants, they began to slay giants. And so just because you're unable to see, and that was the same story of David. David was a shepherd on the battlefield. The Israelites, they had not killed any giants before, but they didn't know that there is a 17-year-old shepherd boy who had killed a lion, who had killed a bear, and is capable of bringing down a giant. And so, but when he came, they understood that there is somebody. That means there are people that God has reserved. And David could have also thought that, I'm the only giant killer in Israel, and I will be the only giant killer in Israel. No. Eventually, David trained men that began to then kill giants as well. That you are not the only one, and we need to know this. We need to be able to understand this and run with it. And so we should not be puffed off in ourselves that we're the only ones, and allow pride and this arrogance come, that we're the only ones getting it right and everyone else is wrong. That if people are not following what we declare, if people are not walking the same path that we're walking in, and then that everyone else is not living the God kind of life, that is an arrogance we need to fight, so that the enemy does not prevail and corrupt the revival and corrupt the move of God that is taking place in our days. God bless you.